All right, welcome everyone to the Vegan Collective Intelligence portion of the Solution Club. We're in the middle of a great conversation. Silas, carry on.
Yeah.
or recap and carry on, or whatever.
Yeah, just to recap what I was saying, I mean, we are compiling an anthology entitled Animal Agriculture is Immoral. And the idea behind this anthology is to create the equivalent of the apartheid is a heresy anthology that happened during the apartheid era, which literally killed apartheid. Okay, so that was the reason why the South African government could not persist with apartheid in the 90s, and they were forced to negotiate because they lost the moral standing of support from the religious community and the faith community. So here I'm getting a lot of religious leaders who have sent me contributions to this, saying that animal agriculture is immoral, and with various titles, but the anthology is Animal Agriculture is Immoral. And we are making the case that it's a completely superfluous industry that's destroying the planet, that's killing animals, that's causing diseases to people who eat it, and simultaneously causing hunger to people who don't eat it, and thereby, causing both sides to die off. So, I mean, any way you look at it, it is an abjectly unnecessary industry that shouldn't be there. It's immoral. So hopefully that will make the case that governments should not be supporting this industry. Because right now, without government support, this industry will collapse. And every government around the world is supporting this industry. I mean, the Indian government is supporting the dairy industry with all kinds of government-sponsored ads and all kinds of things like that, when 60 to 80% of Indians are lactose intolerant. I mean, how stupid is that, right? That we accept this. And the US government, I mean, supporting this industry, recommending 3 servings of dairy a day to school children, thereby getting people of color, children of color, to get sick because they're lactose intolerant. Most of them are lactose intolerant. So this is pure dietary racism in our government, right? And so how can we tolerate this going forward? We need to demand that this government stop. And the US government declaring slaughterhouses to be a critical infrastructure, and therefore has to remain open so people of color get COVID-19 and die. And they have no recourse because it's critical infrastructure. It's like, if you don't work in it, you won't get unemployment benefits because it's like the military, right? You have to go and work there. So this is unacceptable. So this is why we are compiling this anthology. And yeah, if I can get, I still have a month and a half. I've said, no, I have a month. I said by the end of July I want to send it out to the publishers and we have to find publishers. I think vegan publishers will do it, and get it compiled and published. So in the meantime, if you still want to contribute something, please send me. I'd be happy to put it together.
There is
Silas, about the book.
Yeah.
Are you publishing it as a pamphlet or as a hardback? How are you doing it and costing it and distributing it?
Most likely, it'll be only distributed as an ebook.
Yeah, is that? Oh, you mean just online and
online? Yeah,
and you can print it off if they like. Yeah.
Right,
okay.
Print it off if you like, or you can just read it on your Kindle or something like that. A device.
Okay. I'll go into it in detail another time, but I've got a very very elegant method of distributing at key places. Books like that, campaign books. So I'll send it to you in an email, okay?
Awesome. Thank you.
That's awesome. So I was gonna add that the publisher that Will Tuttle went through, Lantern Books, they are a good resource because I think they're mostly vegan, vegetarian friendly publishers. So,
but maybe not necessary for an online.
Yeah, I don't know about an ebook. I don't know if they do that kind of thing, but they would be worth talking to because they publish a lot of similar material.
I think Amazon do ebooks.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I have Carbon Dharma as an ebook on Amazon.
Sailesh, did you
Yes.
check out the little book of vegan poems?
I haven't. Benjamin Zephaniah? I haven't. Unfortunately, I'm in the middle of contributing a chapter to Hope's book. So I have deadlines, and I'm desperately working on it. But it's on my list.
All righty, if I may. I'd like to respond to some of the things that Benjamin said a little bit earlier. First of all, regarding Zoom meetings, remember, when COVID was first a thing, suddenly everybody was on Zoom and it was really exciting, and wherever you looked, there was a Zoom meeting. Oh, great. And I've been noticing that just generally attendance is down, right? So I wouldn't take it. I would hope that VCI wouldn't take it personally. Let's put it that way, right? Or institutionally, right? Okay, don't take it institutionally. It's not about you as an institution. Okay, anyway, that's a relatively it's an important point. I totally hear you though about your love for food healers. Everybody loves food healers. I'm just going to flash a picture on my screen here. It's just my default picture. If you look closely, everybody's smiling. It's just, everybody loves it. Everybody feels good when you feed people, right? As I'm sure Sailesh can tell you. Sailesh, you look great. Physically, you look great. And I attribute that partly because you're feeding people, and it feels great. So now it just so happens that I believe that food healers is actually the best way to get the world to go vegan. I made the little joke a few weeks ago, how what's the best way to get the world to go vegan? Feed them vegan food, feed them plant-based food, right? And so by pushing food healers, and not really trumpeting initially necessarily the whole vegan part, we've talked about this in the past several months, right? Not necessarily trumpeting that at the beginning, but just focusing on, we got to feed everybody. And of course, let them ask, well, what are you feeding them, right? And 100% plant-based, immune boosting, and but by that point, they're already in. If they're in the conversation, they're in because they like it, and it's just a very gentle on-ramp into the world of plant-based, right? Because who's going to refuse beans and rice when they're hungry, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, we can do much better than just that, but that's just a beginning. And then gradually, as it grows and matures as a thing, food healers, of course, you're going to be talking about the killing and eating of animals, dietary racism, worker racism through the meat industry, and all these important issues, right? But I think the entry is, we're here to feed, right? Versus, we're here to tell you what you can and can't eat. And an interesting thing, I was on the phone with my cousin the other day, and he knows that Melissa and I don't eat meat. We spent last Thanksgiving with them and didn't eat meat, and we all kind of had to plan for it, and it was just it was great. So he knows that, but nonetheless, we were talking on the phone, and he said, yeah, my mom and Danny came over, and we barbecued some food. He got himself at the end, right? But it occurred to me that, see, in his world, it's really not an option to not eat meat. And I think back years ago when I first heard of veganism, I felt so sorry for the vegans. It'd be kind of like, what, are they going to end up all emaciated and just miserable and brain damaged? And I don't know what, because it literally didn't occur to me as an option to not eat meat. I had to have my meat, right? And so for people for whom it's not an option, it feels like you're kind of shoving at them this kind of forced starvation diet where they, have to be miserable for the rest of their lives. And so again, I just don't think that's the point of entry, right? I think food healers is the point of entry. So it brings veganism with it, but in such a big way, almost like a Trojan horse. Not really, but just it's got a hint of Trojan horse in it, right? A couple of shakes in the stone soup. But anyway, I've made my point there. And furthermore, very relevant to this whole conversation, of where do we go next, as VCI, very relevant to that is the fact that CSI is about to take off and take off exponentially. And I think if VCI were at the table, right, and essentially a founding organization, we could even create a logo for it, right? This would be at the same time VCI supporting the growth of CSI, and in parallel, in symbiosis, CSI enabling VCI to rebirth itself, rebrand itself, right, in association with food healers and this beautiful, amazing, unity that's coming together. If I had to pick one word for CSI, it'd be unity. And World Unity Week last week taught us some amazing things that basically this is possible and everyone's hungry for it, right? And I'll ask Danny to comment whenever is good about her experiences on Twitter and just the ripeness for this moment. So basically, it's kind of like we're all, among the founders at Microsoft or Intel or Apple in the early days of the computer revolution. We're all here, right? And this thing's taking off. So let's stay together, right? And map it out together and really leverage this for all the benevolent things that we've all been working for and striving for years, for decades. And, we know what those are, so I won't name them. But this is our vehicle for accomplishing all of them, the whole transformation, the whole enchilada, right? Anyway, I feel complete, and thanks for listening, and I'll go on mute, and back to y'all.
I will kick in a little bit about my experience in the Twitterverse. And it's funny because I'm doing my own processing as part of this is all to help me grow. Thank you everybody. But so I haven't been on Twitter, and I've kind of like already made the switch from I'm getting off the political stuff, and now I'm just going to go with this that we're working with. I started to develop a website because I sensed that the level of frustration with people just yelling and yapping and feeling isolated, it's they want to be engaged. So it's got to come out of that forum into something that's real. And the appetite, I can tell you the appetite is so there. This is such the perfect time, because people are engaged in their activism in a box, and they need to break out and feel like they want to participate in creating the change. They want to be the change that they want to see, but they just don't have the vehicle, but the need and the desire is there for sure.
Yeah, sweetheart, welcome.
Yeah, hi everyone. So good to see you guys. I always miss you when I don't see your lovely faces. So I just wanted to put this out there today. So I got a 4Culture grant to run online art workshops with refugee and immigrant families and underserved populations. And that's going to kick off in August in Seattle. And I'm working with the Hunger Intervention Program. They're in Seattle. And another group called Lake City Future First. They feed families. And what we're going to do, I'm really excited about this. We're going to be delivering to families food and art kits. How cool is that? So what I'm wondering, to pick your brains, is how could we bring food healers into this conversation? How could we start doing plant-based meals? I don't know what they serve, right? I haven't asked, but I can. So I just wanted to get your guys' ideas or feedback on that? Like, I know there's this think local, act local, think global. Is that how it goes? Right. So it's like you guys helping feed the Navajo. I'm just thinking this is an opportunity to do something locally together, like to kind of like practice, right?
Right.
I'm willing to put it out there. I just need to know how would we go about that? Thanks.
Melissa, maybe, I mean, I think on the whole we're against the competitive thing. However, you could have a little write a vegan or a plant-based poem, and then the person who writes a really good one gets 2 boxes of grub. Maybe that's a stupid idea, but I'll just put it there.
That's a really cute idea. So normally I would say yeah, but these are really low-income families, and the children need this food. So I like the idea of writing poetry. We are going to be doing some writing about, taking care of the earth and plants and animals and respecting them and not killing them. But the meals, I don't really control how those go out. What I was thinking more along the lines of is, what could we propose to them as a plant-based diet for the children and the families? Like, a grocery list, or, I can come up with a grocery list, of course, but I was just thinking collaboratively, what would that look like? Like, yeah, that was all. I mean, not that was all, but that's.
Yeah. We could have like universal meals, like PCRM recommendations of universal meals. And especially if you have a partnership with a community kitchen belonging to a faith organization that this community belongs to, that's a good place to enlist them, to join the program and to cook such universal meals. There are plenty of recipes available now for this.
Yeah, and I was also think it's a way to build this community, like connecting us with other organizations, from around the United States as well, to just keep growing our community.
And, I'm sorry.
I'm good.
And building on what Silas was looking into, or has been looking into, of buying in really significant quantities. I forget how many tons you would have to buy, 20 tons or 40 tons or something like that. But if you buy at that level, full container load, let's say, the cost just plummets. I mean, by like an order of magnitude or more, literally, and quite astounding. Now, Seattle is a major port city. I think it actually is the highest volume port in terms of either tonnage or dollars or both on the West Coast. It's closer to Asia than the other ports to the south by a couple of days, in the case of Long Beach, another major port. Anyway, the bottom line is, this is a great place to receive. We can receive anything between Seattle and Tacoma, which is an hour and a half south. We can receive anything here. So let's start receiving. Let's start doing crowdsourcing or whatever it takes to buy full container loads. And have a break and bulk facility here in Seattle, where we basically say, it's like a love bomb dropping on Seattle, saying in this radius, there will be no hunger. We guarantee it, right? And we're bringing in full container loads of food, make it a story. Well, who's doing this? The United Nations, the United Way, the United States government, something else that starts with United? No. It's just a bunch of people who got together and decided that, hey, this isn't getting done, so we're going to get it done. So United, United, whatever. You can take all the Uniteds, and all of them together haven't solved this. So we're taking it on because somebody has to.
Right.
Like, wow.
I could say food healers have taken it on.
That's what I'm saying. Food healers. Yeah. That's what I said.
Yeah, it's 100 tons. If you buy 100 tons, you'll get it for $100 a ton.
So literally for $10,000, because $100 a ton works out to 10 cents a kilo.
Right.
Is 4 cents a pound, 4.5 cents a pound. right?
You can see how much Costco's making.
No, they're making a killing. They're all making a killing. It's the monetization of food. And like the monetization of water or the monetization of air or the monetization of any other vital element, it's simply a bad idea, right? And it was never a good idea. And so this will be the beginning of the end of the monetization of food. In fact, we can cast it in those terms if we want. But even that, I would bring in only later. Let's bring in the revolutionary stuff later, right? Start off with fruits and vegetables and win hearts and minds. And then you can tell them all the philosophy later. That's my philosophy. And anyway, yeah. But anyway, I'm just saying, and here's the cool thing is, as the collective superintelligence grows exponentially, we'll have just legions of volunteers, online and in person, right? They'll all want to be a part of it. Everybody loves to get hands-on with food, right? There'll be no shortage of volunteers, online or off. And I see that Emery has his hand raised. Perfect example. He's already raising his hand. Go for it, Emery.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I have this concern. My major concern is that there isn't enough education available for people who are really trenched into their lifestyle of eating meat-based diet and working in the meat industry, in the violent killing, the money making, the money churning machine is so strong. There's so much of the population of the planet is involved in that occupation, right? And there isn't enough education to show people, look, here's a lifestyle for you, eating plant-based diet, and this is how it's done. This is exactly how it's done, and there's a lack of education. People don't have the skill, the mental aptitude to put together creatively a meal. Okay, people are so established in the way they eat and what kind of meats they eat. Is it going to be a cow? Is it going to be a fish? Is it going to be, like, there's so many options, chicken, fowl, like, and it's so strong, right? People need to be educated. Okay, right. I think that should be the primary goal of the vegan community. Okay, I think that they should be on this immense educational focus, and there could be fairs, big organizations like cookouts or whatever organized where you're giving the food, you want to feed everybody anyway. Okay, so what's better than, why not just have like a cook fest? You got thousands of people who know how to cook and put things together, and you do that all the time. So people are more accustomed to seeing, look at what, they're sampling the food, they're tasting, they actually see how it's prepared, they see that it doesn't take long, they see that it's not really that complicated, there's all sorts of tricks that, methods, the methodology, the seasonings, people don't want to lose out. And of course, the people who are entrenched in the industry in the meat industry, there should be a way to subsidize those people out of that situation where their income, they're making a livelihood, they're making an income, they're paying their house, they're paying they're paying for everything from the money they earn from that industry. So there has to be a way out for them. Like there has to be a feedback to them if they're going to get into the vegan lifestyle.
Yeah, if I can respond just briefly. So when you first started talking about education, but then you got down to much more practical boots on the ground solutions, like this idea of a fair, which I think would have been great pre-pandemic. But now that we're in pandemic, I think it's really about the delivery of the food directly to them. But in both cases, you're getting to the end point of kind of like a sequence I came up with. First is, why tell them when you can show them? And the second, why show them when you can feed them? Right? And I mean, when somebody brings you food to your home, I mean, it's a big deal, right? You could be the richest person in the world. It's a big deal when somebody shows up and says, here, I love you. Eat up. I care. Whoa. We're going to blow everyone away. I'm reminded of that Mark Knopfler song from the early 80s. Laying everybody low with the love song that he made. It's a song about Romeo and Juliet, right? We're going to lay everybody low with that love song of feeding everyone. It's going to lay everybody low, and it's going to open up people's hearts and minds and mouths. Because you know what? One of the safest things to talk about among all the things to talk about out there. I mean, I'm going to say something in a half joking way, and Jackie knows what I'm talking about, but we went to a meeting the other day, and goodness, in a very good way, the white people in the room felt like they were getting kind of like, whoa, almost like judged or whatever. We've had some really good conversations after the fact, but my point is, we went with the best of intentions and felt like, ooh, but when it comes to the topic of food, there is nothing wrong about it. There is nothing wrong about delivering immune boosting, whole food, plant-based food to people. Everyone's going to fall in love with the idea. Some people might say, where's the meat? And we'll explain very gently why no meat, with a big smile on our faces and no judgment. But look, this has all your nutritional requirements. Eat up, and we'll see you next week, right? It's going to be a universally feel good, everyone can get behind it kind of thing. That's the thing. It's a great uniter. It's a terrific uniter, right?
Are we questioning this?
No. We're not. I'm just saying that basically my point is to all of Emery's concerns and questions. I think we've got the solution in hand. It's food healers crossed with K-Mama, right? But I think the big thing that's going to blast into the mind is doing the food healers thing at scale, receiving the 100 tons at a time of vital grains and legumes and the like, right? And working with local farms and just making it happen. I mean, it's going to be the feel-good movement of the millennium, right? Anyway, I'm complete. Going on mute.
The universal meal thing plays so well into this because it's so inclusive of anyone's diet on the entire world. Every religion is included. Everybody's allergens are included. It just kind of seems like, and it's called the universal meal too. It's just kind of perfect for that. I am. Go ahead.
I think that's why I'm not personally religious, but I think that's why Jesus's brand of the Last Supper worked.
I had a question for you, Jamin, in terms of this large shipment. And I guess I'm not quite sure what you mean. When you were working with was it the World Cafe? I'm not quite sure. I don't remember the name of your organization,
Your triple C.
your Triple C organization.
Oh, well, Community Cafe is the food one. Triple C is Certified Compassionate. Triple C stands for Certified Compassionate Company.
Cool.
But anyway, back to you.
Oh, but they're funding community cafes, right?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Now, is the food that's being distributed there grown locally, or are you saying that we're shipping that in from somewhere outside of where?
It's a combination, because the reality is that certain things in today's, because we're taking on feeding, densely populated cities, right, among other populations, but densely populated cities are the hardest because they have the least amount of land and whatnot for growing food. Combine that fact with the sheer economies of scale of modern agriculture, and that's what gets it down to 10 cents a kilo for lentils, which are incredibly nutritious and delicious, and it's just like high protein, fiber, whatever it's just like it's nearly a perfect food, maybe a perfect food. You combine it with rice and you get complete amino acid spectrum for protein building. I mean, it's just like, so it's just really hard to turn down the opportunity to take whatever budget we have and throw it at lentils and rice and truckloads of potatoes and all that. But then start to fold into the batter community gardens, rooftop gardens, backyard gardens, front yard gardens, windowsill gardens, hydroponics, but all that's going to take organization and time. And time is one thing that a lot of people don't have, especially if you're hungry. So that's why it's just a balanced portfolio, and the balance will shift over time towards more and more local growing and all that. But it's kind of like immediate relief in the form of full container loads of all this food, and we focus on distribution, and in parallel with the long-term, solution, which is grow locally.
I gotcha. That's I like thinking of it that way. I've been caught up thinking of trying to think of it as the entire new game to play. Like, let's just start.
We need to grow it now.
Let's start growing it now.
Yeah.
Let's start. Like, we have friends who there are multiple veganic farms in the area that are growing food.
Well, we can start there too.
Right. Yeah. No, that's what I'm thinking. Is there's got to be some kind of combination of showing people that there is the local, harmless way of doing things, but then there's also the monocrop, semi-destructive, fast, like ease of access type of way of cheap.
Or maybe externalities.
Yeah, the externalities there need to be. Oh, well, I don't know. I get caught up there thinking, those externalities aren't being taken into consideration. But with the idea of transitioning over time, that makes sense. And especially if education is happening in the meantime, while you're doing it.
Yeah, and the most powerful framework for all of the above, including the education piece, including optimizing and balancing the portfolio over time, and launching and supporting thousands of projects in millions of geographies. A big part of all that is, or the central nervous system and the backbone and the framework for and scaffolding for all of that is CSI, collective superintelligence. So so that's why what I keep coming back to is that the singular action item at this moment is launch the CSI. We can do it this week. I mean, we're essentially doing it. But this Friday will probably be, I can get it on the schedule and all that for the block party. But anyway, this is something that we're in the process of discussing, Silas and I and Peter and all of us. And so it's not something where I'm saying, hey, this is how it has to be. I'm just saying, in my world, this is the priority, because that will grow exponentially, right? And once you have, well, and for those of us who participated in World Unity Week last week, we got a taste of it, right? An actual prototype a working prototype of a network of conversations where you could hop around. I mean, it was a mini CSI, and it worked, right? So now and everyone's hungry for the real thing to just now go. So we're just, in a nutshell, we're doing it. We're doing it now because we're out of time as a planet across so many issues. And the cool thing about doing CSI rather than, doing yet another project, right? And another project and another project, is no matter what project you do, you're not going to satisfy everyone, right? Let's say we're doing food healers and somebody gets up in our face and says, no, it's all about Black Lives Matter right now, But the cool thing about CSI is there's a whole section of it that's dedicated to Black Lives Matter. There's a whole section of it dedicated to feeding everyone. Another one dedicated to veganism, what we should be feeding everyone, right? Another one to SRM, another one to this, another one to that, full spectrum across all issues. And people will self-select, they'll go to where they want to go. No one's telling anyone where to go, right? And another really powerful innovation where we learned from the main stage at World Unity Week and drew inspiration from, but also from the Block Party and this very Solution Club, is the notion of a central hub for all these conversations that I think very quickly it'll become 24/7, because it'll be something that people will love to volunteer for. We talked about this last night.
Was that the lounge?
The lounge. Have a lounge. It's just open all the time, right? And it's totally cool to just hang out, right? In the lounge. It's kind of a new paradigm. But there can also be, but its main function, I would say, is to welcome people, right? People are afraid of jumping in to what may feel to them like, the O'Reilly factor on Fox News, right? And because they just, I've never been on television before. I've never done debate before. I don't want to do it live, right? So it's like, we are such a tiny population of folks who are doing stuff like this, transformational conversations where we're actually participating, not watching some, Ubiquity University stream or changing the channel and watching some Rebel Wisdom stream, right? But actually participating in it. So we have the opportunity here to really open it up and have a certified, compassionate network of conversations with a single point of entry. Let's just call it the lounge, right? And if the lounge is open, which again, I think it'll go from a couple dozen hours a week to 24/7 very quickly. But whenever the lounge is open, it's because there is a certified, compassionate lounge leader. Certified.
A lounge lizard.
A lounge lizard, a lounge leader. I'm calling it a lounge leader. At least one, or maybe two, if that's what's required. But when the lounge is open, people are going to come gushing in once we hit the knee of the exponential. And then it's going to be torrential after that, as it goes vertical. Along the way, we'll evolve whatever systems and practices and rules and whatever else we need to accommodate all that. But for starters, it's just going to be super fun, because all kinds of new people are going to keep showing up, because we define and pioneer certified compassionate, not just compassionate. There's a difference between compassionate and certified compassionate, right? Anyway,
I just want to interject.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
And I just want to, though, honor what Benjamin brought to the table as well, because I think that's so beautiful, that kind of forward thinkingness about whatever we're doing from here on out, that we're not just repeating an old business model or an old way of doing something. I really love that, Benjamin. So thank you for, bringing that back into the conversation, this idea, in CSI, yes, but also in these small acts and big acts that we're really modeling this new way of living on the planet.
Oh, I'm sorry, sweetheart.
So yeah, Jamin.
So I apologize.
Thanks a lot, Jamin.
I'm sorry. Okay.
And actually, it's funny because Jamin and I were out walking in the back country here on the island, and we saw this field for rent. And we're like, hey, let's check it out. Let's go rent this field and get local people to start digging and growing food for the whole community. So, it's in the air, I think, this idea of growing locally and feeding people and not just buying food from wherever, Mexico or China. So thanks, Benjamin.
Thank you, Melissa. One of the asks at one of the protests we've been attending was to attend a farmer's market that was open to people of color coming and setting up, all vendors. And it was my birthday the other weekend, so we decided to stop by there before going and seeing my family. And the line was ridiculous. It was all the way around the street, and there was no time for us to get anything because we would have been there for hours waiting to get in. But it was so inspiring, and all of those people, it can be intuited that we need this food to come from somewhere we know, were you going to say something?
Well, right around the block from the farmer's market was a food pantry, also with a line around the corner. So,
right.
Just
and who knows where that food was coming from,
right.
In relation to like the amount of distance it traveled versus the quality of the food, how it was grown. The love that was put into it. You could tell that these people were all here to support both the grower and like the medium and the action, and so that was really inspiring, and also kind of made a switch in my head to really start focusing on food, because it does seem so universal like that. And these were people from all ages, all colors, all over the city. So I'm glad you said that, Melissa. I think that local, as much as we can integrate the people who are in our communities right now, and boost those people up as high as we can. I think that's that should be a pretty high priority.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday.
And yeah, thanks, Benjamin. That's really awesome. You just given me an idea. Actually, I think with the art kits, I'm going to send a flower pot and some soil and some seeds for the children to plant their first little mini vegetable garden in their apartments. So thank you for that.
Oh, that's a great idea. Cool.
Yeah, and I think the combination of, just food delivery, including these truckloads of legumes and rice and potatoes and whatnot, combined with this kind of, gifting and, having whole teams that go out with appropriate safety procedures and all that. There may be one person who just does all the opening and closing of doors and touching of stuff. So you only have one person to sanitize instead of, all 7 people or whatever, right, in the team. But, I think the combination of those two, relief and planting seeds, basically planting gardens,
mm-hmm.
right, and permaculture and hydroponics and all that, all the usual suspects, to quote Melissa's grandfather, Howard Koch, Casablanca. We round up the usual suspects of all that food growing. The combination of that roundup, sorry for the roundup, but that accumulation with the relief, that's an exotic combination. It's like full court press in basketball or whatever, but applied to food. It's food court press. Food court press. Full court press. Food court press. Anyway. It's the Bomba. It's the food Bomba, right? Let's call it Operation Food Bomb. That'll get their attention. Emery's got his hand up. Go for it, Emery.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I would just like to hear more addressing the economics issue with all of this. It would seem to me a very critical part of, you know, being able to transition, you know, this movement, you know, the economy, the economic tools. There has to be some economic um, relief here for people, you know, to be able to engage in the change. All right, that you're envisioning here. I mean, we're still trapped in this economy, okay,
Right.
which is a violent economy based on killing millions and millions and billions of animals. Okay, we're eating constantly, so the economy is based on that, and there has to be a mechanism that we could create or, you know, move forward somehow into the mindset of people. I mean, it's fine we're talking here and everything, the conversation's great, but I would like to hear more ideas of how it can be economically done so that people can pay their mortgage or pay their things that they need, or is it all going to be for free? Or how do you envision this transition? And we don't have a lot of time here, you know, because we got other things to do also.
Yeah, good question, Imri. Actually, this is how it started, okay? Because the World Food Program announced that they're expecting the number of people who are hungry to double by the end of this year because of the economic crisis caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. So they expect about 1.6 billion people to be food insecure by the end of this year, compared to the 820 million last year. And in the US, they said it's going to increase by 50% to from 36 million to 54 million people. So, so that's based on the current economy, the current economic model. That's where we are headed. And so, and that's going to cause all kinds of, you know, dislocations. And people are going to be, I mean, when people are hungry, they're going to go out on the street. You know, they're going to demand that things change. So it is a recipe for disaster. You know, typically when you have, in the current economic model, when you have such a huge disruption, that's when we start world wars, you know. We start wars and we start killing a bunch of people. So this is the kind of solution that we have in the current system, the current economic system. So I see the rumblings that are going on between India and China as the beginnings of something like that the current system is envisioning. So how do you counter this? So I looked at that and I said, you know, if 1.6 billion people are food insecure, that means there are 6.2 billion people who are food secure. So can we not get the 6.2 billion people to start supporting the 1.6 billion people in a way that, you know, basic food necessities are taken care of? See, human beings have three basic necessities, right? Shelter, food, water, maybe clothing. You add clothing. Now, clothing you can get, you know, we have plenty of clothing. And we don't buy clothing every day. Shelter, there's plenty of shelter available. There are lots of hotel rooms that are empty. Okay, so it's just a matter of saying, yeah, there is shelter available, so I can house the homeless, the houseless, right, with that shelter. So it's the only thing that's remaining is food, making sure that people have food. So that's why we said, okay, let's do a food healers, and that to involve the faith community to start supplying the food, because they have free rent available. So which means when they cook and they had volunteers to go serve the food, their costs are very low. So you can do a 2-for-1 type of deal with food healers and still have the prices be less than what you pay in restaurants for healthy food. Okay, if you want unhealthy food, go to a restaurant. I don't care. If you can afford it, go for it. I don't care, right? But for healthy food, and that too, if it's food that's an offering as a gift, it has to be healthy food that comes from a church or a temple or something like that. People are willing to pay for that, right? So I priced it out at a local temple, and they're saying that they can have a full course meal, 3-course meal for $4. That's their cost. So I said, so if you offer it for $8, then for everyone who buys it, you can say the suggested donation is $8, and people can get it, and you come and deliver it to them. Then they automatically fund another person, okay, for free. So that's the idea behind food healers, is to try and reverse what's going on with the way the current system is moving, because the current system is all about killing animals, killing people. It's not just animals they kill people too. They're killing 9 million people every year from hunger, and hunger-related causes. And simultaneously, they're killing like 8 million people from heart attacks. It's the same system. Okay? You can just tell the people who are getting heart attacks, if you eat whole plant foods, you don't have to get it, the heart attack. And then if you eat whole plant foods, the other people can also eat. So to create a system of abundance, you need to reverse what's happening in the food system. And literally by making whole plant foods free, we are creating a system of abundance in food. That's the goal. So it's to counter what's happening in the economy, okay? And then hopefully then we can create. I mean, I'm telling people who are fighting racism, speciesism, all these other isms, that we need to come together around food and make this available. Because when we do that, then you're addressing racism at its root. You're addressing speciesism at its root. People who eat animal foods are fundamentally supporting racist organizations. They're supporting colonialist organizations because it's all built into the food system. So they're, unconsciously or consciously, without the education, they won't know. But when we educate them, we can tell them, look, when you eat animal foods, you're supporting racism, you're supporting colonialism. Is that really what you want to do? So if you want to create a system based on equality, this is the first thing we need to do. And then, of course, we have an obligation to create a system in which this is normal, okay? Because right now, we can go and yell at people for being racist. But what choice do they have? They have a system in which racism is built in. You're sending them all these supremacist messages of human supremacism, or white supremacism, or male supremacism. Those are the messages that we're constantly sending out to people. And so why blame people for being, patriarchal or racist or whatever? Because it's in the air. They're breathing it. So unless we create a system in which equality is being propagated, we can't expect people to overcome the racism that's in the air. So it's our job to create that kind of a system in which equality is normal. It's in the air. So the 7 core shifts are fundamental, in my opinion. And the Aquarius new game is fundamental. Veganism is fundamental. Unless we create that new system, with a new game and the new story, we're not being serious. We can have all the meetings we want, we're not being serious. I mean, I was shocked when Ben Bowler, Bowler got this message from Supreme Master Ching Hai where she ended by saying, be vegan, make peace. And she showed all these videos about what's happening to the animals, in between. And so Ben Bowler, he tagged me on Facebook to watch this video because it came to the World Unity Week. But he just tagged me and Shelley and Jan. I mean, he's got hundreds of people in the World Unity Week. He's not tagging anybody else. Why is this a rarity? Among those who are fighting for peace. Why is veganism such a rarity? What is this peace you're fighting for if there is violence on your plate? So that's why I think, we need to continue the World Unity Week. Make it a World Unity year, World Unity, whatever. Until we get it done. That's the idea that Peter and Jamin and I are working towards. You can't just do it for 1 week and then move on. Until things are actually changing in the world, you haven't done anything. You've just spoken. You haven't done anything, right? We need to see things on the ground that have changed. So until then, we have to keep at it.
I think, Silas, I had the same impression after World Unity Week. It seemed to me like they're using an old model of what peace is,
Mm-hmm.
It's like even the logo, I was like, seriously, really? I don't know if you saw the logo. Not to criticize that, but it's just, it's not forward thinking. That they don't have the vision of this new game yet that you're talking about.
Right.
Because it has to be uncompromising. It can't be a halfway measure.
Yeah. See, originally they were asking me to speak at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on World Water Day. Okay. Which is a day in which no other functions happen. It's only water. Everybody is in World Water Day. Everybody is talking about water. And so they were going to have my talk about veganism at 8 p.m. Eastern, prime time, right? And then they changed their mind. Okay, they decided to make it on Monday at 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So it tells me they're not yet serious. They're not yet there yet. They're not yet serious.
Sidesh,
Yeah.
You've probably heard it before, but one of my favorite sayings is, I think it was Jim Highsmith who said it, is the middle of the road is for yellow lines and dead armadillos.
Thank you.
And no one can accuse you of being a yellow line or a dead armadillo.
I have a promise to keep, so.
Well, I've got some comments, and then Emery's got his hand up. So, Silas, you talk about the progression from World Unity Week to World Unity Year to, how about this? World Uniternity. World Uniternity. Anyway, and now, Silas, you said we need to create the new system, and it's a system of equality, right? So that everyone can enjoy the system of equality. Now, there's a subtle thing here, but I'd like for everyone to just listen for, when you hear we need to create the new system, who is the we, right? Is it us, this kind of specialized class, or is it everyone? Because for me, the ultimate form of equality is to take it all the way upstream to the source of the co-creation of the new system and invite everyone to be a part of that. That's CSI. That's why for me, CSI comes first, and it's going to be essentially instantaneous, right? It'll just go kavoosh. We tasted it last week with World Unity Week, and once we make it ongoing, it'll be a platform upon which to build, because everyone will know where to go, and it's just ongoing. It's just a thing. So that's what I wanted to contribute. That's for me the place to start, because then you get everyone's buy-in. Everyone has ownership. Everyone's participated in it, right, from the very get-go, right? Emery's got his hand up.
Can I
Go,
just
please,
say,
please,
this
please.
is just a little thing, but it's a big thing. It's not actually equality, it's equity, and they're different. Equality is where everyone's equal, but we're not really equal. And equity is where the base for everyone is the same. So the image that I was shown is a child, a toddler, and an adult looking over a fence, and the toddler's on the ground, and the parent can see over, the youth can go on their tippy toes and see over, but the toddler cannot. That's equality. Equity is when you move the fence and everybody can see, regardless of where they're standing. So I think it's really important to adopt that one when we're talking about that.
Yeah, just a response to that. I mean, I hear you. That's eventually where we need to be. But you begin with the base of equality. You know, this is all men are created equal. Not all men are created, all beings are created equal. So you start with that, and then of course society has the responsibility to provide equity, to balance things out. You start, so when it is equality to begin with, then everybody comes into it knowing that they are treated fairly. That someone hasn't already made a rule, you know, and said that so and so he'll be getting double because of who he is. He's a white person or whatever, right? That's where people are always coming in saying, you know, you're going to screw me because of my background, whatever, right? So I mean, I started in this by talking to women in the villages of India, okay, who don't have a voice. They don't have internet. They're the ones who are growing that lentils, the moong dal that we are buying at 10 cents a kg, okay, retail. They're getting paid 5 cents a kg, okay, for growing all that. And it's backbreaking work. And I swore that I was going to make things fair for them when I was working with them. That it's unacceptable that what they're going through, right? And they said the same thing to me. You know, they said, you keep coming back to us, so we know that you're going to take care of us. So I got this responsibility on my shoulder, you know, and they said that to me. So yeah, any system you figure out, you think about, has to keep them in mind that they have suffered enough, you know, and it's time that we bring them up, give them the comforts of life. And I mean, we are growing so much food these days. Half of it is going to our animals anyway. Right? Sorry, Imri.
Oh yeah, thanks. Go for it, Emery.
Thanks. As for Silas, I just wanted to confirm what you had said before about the number of people on the planet that you deem to be food secure. Did you say that that number was 6.2 billion people are food secure, and that you're hopeful that they will provide the free food? Can you just repeat that and explain that one more time?
Yeah, the World Food Program said that the number of people who are food insecure would be 1.6 billion by the end of this year. And the population of the planet is 7.8 billion. It's going to be 7.8 billion by the end of the year for sure. So which means that 6.2 billion people are food secure, so to speak. So meaning there's plenty of food. There is food available, and people are dumping food in the ground, okay, because no one's buying the potatoes. You know, they're just plowing it back into the ground right now, because that's the economic system we have. So it's like, you know, if you then get places of worship to start cooking whole plant food meals, you can induce people to donate to them so that they can serve the community. And then you can create this competition. That's what we are planning to do. So we have this gaming mechanism built into the app that makes cities compete with each other to see who has the least hunger in their city. You know? And so it becomes like a game that we play, you know, making sure that our neighbors are fed. Because other cities are making sure that their neighbors are fed.
Yeah, follow-up my follow-up question on that is, like, I'm curious whether there are any statistics available, or has there been any research done to determine, out of the 6.2 billion people who are food secure, what percentage of that number are eating animal-based diet? And, you know, this would seem to me the critical problem, that there is too much of a majority of these secure people in that position. So, you know, I'd like to have, whether you've come across any statistics, or is there a way of determining what that number is?
Yeah, there is. There is statistic on the totality of animal foods versus plant foods. In terms of weight, we know that 82% of all food that we eat is plant food. 18% is animal food. And I think it's similar in terms of calories as well.
I would
So
think there'd be a bit more calories from the meat, because on a pound per pound basis, meat.
it's dry weight, okay? We are looking at dry weight. So this is why it is 82% versus
Okay,
18%.
sorry.
Yeah, so I think the calories is very similar. Protein-wise, it's 63% is from plant foods and 37% is from animal foods. But then, there is this wide disparity. Some people who are eating a lot, but they're also starving, even though they're eating a lot. Because that's why there is obesity in the community, because people are eating, their body is telling them they don't have enough of certain nutrients, so they keep eating, that food, whatever that is, and it's not fulfilling them, because these are all processed foods, and our corporations are very good at processing the food and giving you things that make it addictive, but not necessarily supplying you with all the nutrients you need. So there's a lot of nutritional deficiencies up and down the chain, even among the food secure.
Is there, with the tobacco industry, some great, a great film was made about it, but some great investigations were made into the tobacco industry and how they were putting all kinds of poisons,
Right.
extra poisons in the tobacco to keep people addicted. And then when they couldn't get away with it in the North, they hit the global South and were literally pushing cigarettes on young kids. And I mean, it's the same model for the food industry, isn't it? Is anybody doing some really detailed investigative work in the food industry that you could recommend for reading, Silesh?
Good question. There is a new documentary that's coming out that's called "They Are Trying to Kill Us."
Yes, I've come across that over
Yeah.
the last 2 days. Yeah, because I posted it on my Facebook that it was on its way.
Right. So that's a good one. But yeah, we need the equivalent of "Thank You for Smoking," right? That's the movie, documentary you're thinking about tobacco industry. Yeah, it's the same, but it's the same thing in every industry, by the way. It's not just the tobacco industry. It's the same thing in the pharmaceutical industry, the same thing in the food industry. They're just about to make money. They're making money off of people's bodies. We're all consumers, right? We're all being used to make money.
We really have to sort out that money thing, don't we?
Yep.
It's the root of, it's the block of everything, isn't it?
Yeah, it is the money game that causes this to happen, and this is why it's important that we work on this new game. I mean, it's well and good to say everyone should be involved in designing this game, but there are a few people who really have who can do it. It's like asking everybody to make movies, right? I mean, you'll get something out of everyone, but you probably need someone like who's done movies before to do a good job. Yeah. So you need that kind of expertise, So anyway, there are a bunch of economists who are thinking about it too. But it has to be a different game. And so what we have been trying to do in the Vegan World 2026 project is to come up with a game that you can play in parallel with the current money game. Because you can't just say, here is a new game and throw the old game away. Let's all play the new game. That's very disruptive. So we have to create a game in which you can play both games. And then eventually say, I prefer the new game to the old game, and drop the old game altogether. And as more and more people play the new game, you change the corporations in the old game. So we need to get the corporations to work because they're so powerful. You need to get there, but they're like like a bunch of machines, right? That's who they are. They're like mindless machines that are chewing away at the planet. Right? So you need to get these powerful machines to start rebuilding the planet. Creating products that are good. And that's what the new game tries to do.
How far along have you got with the new game? Are you talking a literal board game that people can play?
No. It's like an app. It will be an app.
Okay. But is somebody working on a board game like that throws out the Monopoly and does the other board game? That where every time you touch money you're contaminated and you lose two counters or something like that. Is somebody doing a literal one as well?
They're working on models right now. They're working on modeling it and simulating it, and making sure that we covered all our bases in the new game. But we haven't done it. I mean, there are other board games that do the equivalent of Monopoly, but like a Coopoly, they call it Coopoly, or Polymoney, different versions of the Monopoly game that do cooperative ones. But what we are saying is that anytime you take ownership of properties, like in the Monopoly game, any kind of ownership, and then getting rent from people on the ownership, you are stuck in the old game. You'll be stuck in the old game, and it will just lead to concentration of wealth with a few people, which is what we have today.
Sailesh, me and my son, we were talking about activism, and very quickly the activists who are successful, they find a platform, they find their voice. Suddenly that becomes their package that they sell in a capitalist way. So they, then it's a job for the girls, it's a job for the boys. And it's like, it's very hard to, they're doing good things, but you end up hating their guts because they've betrayed it. They've betrayed everything by doing it.
Yeah, they're stuck in the old game. See, the game of money forces us to do that. No matter how you do it, the game of money is the old game. Imri has his hand up.
Yeah, here in Canada, there's a company called Canadian Tire. Okay, and when you purchase things from that company, they give you Canadian Tire money in denominations of 5 cents, 25 cents, 10 cents, 50 cents, a dollar, whatever, right? Based on what you buy, based on the amount you buy. Now, if there, maybe there would be a way to incorporate some kind of reward based on the type of food you purchase. Okay, so you're staying in the money game per se. Okay, but there's an element here which connects to motivation to purchase plant-based food like vegetables and so on. So when you do purchase, you would get a reward, like a kickback on the amount that you put in towards that. Now that could be maybe used for the same product, or maybe as some kind of a tax reduction for personal tax or whatever. There could be some way of incorporating that exchange to be a motivating factor.
Right, that's what the new game does. It sort of measures the true cost of products based on planetary boundaries initially. It could be more than planetary boundaries. And then it incentivizes you to get those products that have the least impact on the planet. So, so this way you are then sending a signal to the market that that's the kind of product you're looking for. This is what you want, that which minimizes the ecological footprint. And incentives, you could then get people who are creating those products to offer incentives in real dollar terms to the people who are buying it, because they're buying it because it has the less ecological footprint. So for Aquarius members, you could say, give us a 5% discount or 10% discount if we buy your product. And I'm sure we can work that out, But ultimately, the idea is to then get everyone to be conscious of the ecological footprint of their product and to create products that have the least ecological footprint, because these Aquarius members are demanding it, right? So it's like the vegans. Right now, the vegans, by demanding plant-based foods, we are forcing Wendy's to have vegan options and Burger King to have vegan options. It's not like Burger King and Wendy's want to promote veganism. That's the last thing on their minds, right? We brought them kicking and screaming to the table. Why? Because in any group, it's the vegan who decides where the group goes to eat. And so they discovered, by doing focus groups, that's where they're losing their customers. Yeah. So they realized they better have vegan options, otherwise they're going to go bankrupt very soon, right? Because this thing is growing exponentially. So they decided to do it. In the same way, just like we did with plant-based foods, we can do it with other things, with other impacts. Minimize your plastic on your plastic wrapping, on your packaging, because that's going to increase your Aquarius cost. If you don't, we're going to go with the ones who have the least packaging cost. So this way you start changing lots of different aspects of corporate behavior, not just the veganism. So every aspect of it we can start changing, and we can do it very quickly, actually. So that's what we are trying to do with the Aquarius game. It's like the equivalent of veganism in every aspect of your life.
So I have a comment. So Silas, a couple few minutes ago, you mentioned that I think in response to my comment that we need to invite everyone to be able to, co-create the new game and all that. When I talk about the new game, really what I'm talking about, and I'll just screen share for a moment here, a slide that everyone here has seen, with the possible exception of Danny, but I'll just flash it for a moment, is we ultimately need to create solutions across all these different realms, right? And so the real game, right? I'm just going to hover over with my mouse for a minute here. So you're talking about a solution in the realm of the economic and political. Definitely beautiful, love it, right? Or the economic, let's say. Political would be a separate thing, and of course that's going to have myriad impacts on what people eat, even on the story of who we are, and all kinds of myriad positive impacts. But that's not going to be the only solution out there. We're going to be having solutions to replace totalitarian agriculture with local food and all that, that'll dovetail and complement. So yes, it creates a foundation for it. But my larger point is we're going to need millions of solutions across the board, right? And we're going to need, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people to come up with all those solutions, as well as the integration, right? How does it all work together, as well as the evolutionary pathway of how do we get there from here, right? We might go through several different stages. And so all that's going to require massive mind power. Now, I'm going to agree with you that for the economic models and all this, that's probably mostly the realm of economists, including very enlightened economists, right? But you never know when a novice 15-year-old who got fascinated with the topic at age 9, has been reading about it ever since, has come up with some really cool ideas, right? So there needs to be an openness. And that's not to say that you can't have a private meeting with, Jean-Francois and, your top 5 favorite economist buddies that you want to get together with and work on this. Go for it, right? And record it or not, right? So it's not like you have to let everyone in on the meeting or anything like that. So it's not something that would slow anyone down, right? Everyone's going to meet with whoever they want anyway, right? I happen to like to meet with the world, so that's what I do, but not everyone likes to do that. But my larger point is simply this: it's time for CSI. And I don't think we can afford to put it off any longer. And I think it'll do nothing but support what you're talking about, Silas. All the things you're talking about, right? For all the reasons we've talked about. Okay, going on mute. Thank you.
I have a question about the CSI and exactly what is going to happen Friday.
Yeah, so I'll share my perspective on what I'd like to see happen Friday and what I'd like to see generally with CSI, which is that, so I've talked about the lounge and this network of conversations surrounding the lounge, right? And the lounge is kind of the single point of entry where everyone is welcome, and it's really where everyone is recommended to go first. And the main function of the lounge is to welcome newcomers and kind of give them guidance on where to go, give them kind of an overview, and these are the different kind of clusters of conversations around these different themes or whatever, right? However the structure starts shaping up. And in addition to that single Zoom room, we also have a single Google Doc, which people who are basically certified leaders all have access to edit and all that, and create meetings, schedule them, and add them to the Google Doc. So it's just the kind of like the simplest way of creating just a list of all the meetings that are going on. So a newcomer comes in, people are constantly going back and forth between meetings, specific conversations on specific topics, and then coming back to the lounge to kind of report on stuff, right? So there's this constant flow of information pulsating throughout the network. And then, within those conversations will be, including all the way up to very high level conversations like what is certified compassionate and how does it apply, right? And all of these topics for me are ongoing conversations, right? Nothing has to be set in stone permanently. Why, right? And so, of course, then mash that up with an appropriate form of democracy, whether holacracy, sociocracy, or some other ocracy. And now we've got a way to basically collectively make agreements and commitments and say, sure, we can talk about, oh, all right, Jackie. Sure, we can talk about whatever we want and talk about changing this or changing that. But in the meantime, these are the rules kind of thing, right? And so to say that just because everything is an ongoing conversation doesn't mean that we can't have laws, rules, agreements, et cetera, standards, and all those good things. So it's simply about maximizing the evolution, the evolutionary driving force towards, again, and then, another major topic, right, is, what is the goal, right? Obviously, we've got certain fires we need to put out. We need to put out the fire of hunger. We need to put out the fire of carnivorism. We need to put out the fire of planetary overheating, literally. But beyond, let's say we put out all these fires. Just imagine, it's like 7.3 years into the future, and we've put out all these fires. Wow, we're celebrating, big party. Okay, the next day we wake up. All right, now what? Right? What is the big picture mission? Right? Beyond putting out fires. Why are we here? What's the point? Now, here's the thing. In this world of urgencies and urgent problems, right? For me, that's one of the least urgent problems that we have to figure out right now is who are we? Why are we here? I am perfectly happy to do nothing but fight fires until the fires are out. And then I'm happy to take off my firefighter helmet and put on a philosopher, beret or whatever philosophers wear, right? Accordingly, my prediction is that within this network of conversations, you can have very few people talking about philosophy, and most people are going to be talking about feeding everyone. And a small but growing number of people will be talking about SRM. Yet another great urgency, right? Among several. So, the bottom line is it all matters. And so we need to create space for all. And people are going to gravitate to and talk about whatever they want to talk about anyway. We might as well encourage people to do that within an integrated framework, a framework of unity. Thank you. And please, oh, and then for this Friday and how I see it kind of taking off is, for me, the first step is, launch the lounge and have it operating during whatever hours per week that we have certified compassionate lounge leaders, CCLL, certified compassionate lounge leaders. Sorry about all the acronyms. But, because, to hold the space for the lounge and receive whoever comes through that door, that's a big responsibility. And you need to be appropriately, trained and wanting to take that on. Anyway, we'll have a process for that, right? Likewise, we'll have a process for certified compassionate leaders, which is less stringent. And it's simply about leading a conversation out there in the network somewhere, which is very different from the mothership of the lounge, right? Okay. Start, so during the first lounge hours, we talk about precisely that. What is certified compassionate? What are the rules? Hey, before we start playing a game, can we agree on the rules? And before we can agree on the rules, let's talk about the rules, right? Let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. So, if that feels like kind of like a fractal, like starting at a root and then having it grow and expand, but that's precisely the visual I'd like you to take away, right? It's like a tiny little mustard seed. You can barely see with the naked eye, and voila, it grows into this big mustard plant, right? So this is kind of like Operation Mustard Seed. Let's see, because we have to start with something, right? Because nothing is kind of powerful philosophical concept, which I can't really wrap my head around. So what we're starting with is essentially us, with all of our good points and bad points and faults and everything else, us coming together with the intention of saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth, period. Right? If you're not about that, you came to the wrong place. Now, you're welcome to stay and check it out, but this is fundamentally what we're about. Now, how do we do that? Well, Jamin here is saying, let's start with a conversation about the rules and how we're going to play, and then let's start playing. Let's start having all these great conversations on all these different topics and hopping around from place to place. I'm just saying, let's have some, basic safety and compassion built into the game. The game of what? The game of money, the game of, no, the game of conversation. It all starts with conversation. Everything, whether it's food, let's have a conversation. What are we going to eat today, tomorrow, 10 years from now? Whether it's, what form of democracy? Well, I like holacracy. Well, I like sociocracy. Well, let's talk about it, right? SRM, how are we going to cool the planet? Well, let's talk about that too. It turns out we've got a lot of things to talk about, right? That's why for me, the rallying cry is, it's time for a conversation. Saving life on Earth. It's time for a conversation. Why are we here? It's time for a conversation. Black Lives Matter. It's time for a conversation. You name it. If it's important, it's time for a conversation. Now, the network itself, the network of conversations, if it were up to me, my best guess as to what a good brand would be the conversation. Wait a second, that sounds like one conversation. Well, it's actually a network. So it becomes kind of like a mental thing, right? Like Microsoft, Intel, what? Intelligence? What is it, a person? No, it's a chip. What? Intelligence on a chip? It becomes something that you kind of think about. So the conversation is singular, right? It's one conversation, one network of conversations. And that unity piece is crucial. So let's say that we and 7 other groups are starting CSI efforts independently of each other. And a few weeks later, we all find out about each other. Well, what there is to do is merge. It's kind of like built into the charter. We believe in a singular network of conversations, completely free of money, decentralized, open source, et cetera, right? And totally transparent. So any major decisions that are made, any board meetings, all have to be public and broadcast, right? And there has to be great support for concentric circles or overlapping Venn diagrams of conversations of anyone who wants to get in on the conversation being able to have their voice heard. And there will be natural dynamics of thumbs ups and thumbs downs and, hey, you should check this out. And so some stuff will get more views than others. That's natural. But every idea has a chance. Every conversation has a chance. It's kind of like a free marketplace of ideas with no money. Just, hey, I got a great idea. Okay, I'll listen. No, that's not so much for me, but thanks. Okay, and then I go over someplace. I mean, it's like total freedom of thought, of expression within boundaries. We don't interrupt people. We don't be condescending to people. We pretty much know what they are. We just have to articulate them, right? I mean, we live it. We embody it. Now we need to put it down in writing. It's not too hard. In fact, there's a great example of it from one of a number of groups that we had the pleasure to meet on a field trip during last week's Solution Club. And it's Novus Sutra. It's basically, you could think of them as this tree and forest group based in Santa Cruz. And they have this really cool set of agreements around conversation, right? And the woman in the upper right corner, Michelle, she's essentially the Jamin Shively of this community. And she's awesome. And I just love that they showed the agreements up on the screen and shared them with us. And I just took a screenshot and I'm like, wow. Right. And one of the things is Look at the lower left. Leave silence after someone speaks. How cool is that? Right? So anyway,
James,
yeah.
just to undercut that slightly, how hard is that? How hard is that?
It's hard until and unless we've adopted it, but we have to all agree to adopt it, right?
I love every one of those.
Yeah, I thought you would. I thought you would. So here's so the cool thing is, see, now as these different communities, the Novus Sutras and the Radishes and the Vegan World 2026 and as all those communities are coming together, we're starting to make all these connections. Say, wow, Michelle, you guys have really cool discussion agreements. Man, well, of course. Wow, Jamin, I really like some of the stuff you're doing with CSI. Well, of course, great. You know, and likewise among games and even economic systems, right? We need to get out there and start mixing it up with each other, right? Not just our familiar friends who we love, but the new friends that we need to make, the new friendships, the new connections, right?
Yeah, the thing is, Jamin, whenever there's a good idea, which I'm sure you're like that anyway, you just grab it and use it, because it's, you know, it's there for everybody, you know, because it's part of our collective, you know, talents. So yeah, if it's good, bring it in.
Yeah, exactly. It just becomes this massive open source extravaganza. That's the vision. And I just want to make sure I've totally answered Benjamin's question, and then I'll pass it to Emery. And in a few minutes, Silas and I have, at the top of the hour, Silas and I have yet another meeting to go to together. But this meeting can continue if y'all want to continue with it, no problem. But in terms of so the starting point would be, we just, you know, carve out as many hours as we can out of the block party and even out of the solution club, and dub them the lounge of the conversation. And when people, and then during those 2-hour periods or whatever, hey, welcome to the lounge. We'll try to make them as long and contiguous as possible. Probably the first 6 hours of this meeting today will be the lounge, and then most of the block party will be the lounge, right? And we just talk about the lounge, we talk about the conversation, we talk about the big picture vision of saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth. We talk about what we think is most urgent, right? And we freely agree, disagree, etc., right? And then when you've got enough people in the lounge, like 50 people in the lounge, right? And 20 of them are pounding on the table saying, we want to talk about Black Lives Matter. Great. Go create a conversation and go do that, and come back and let us know how it's going. Come back and advertise for it, right? Hey, there's a bunch of us physicists who want to talk about SRM. Okay, great, go do that, right? But then those of us who stay in the lounge, our main job is to receive people who come and either help them find a conversation that they want to join or create a new one, if that's what they want to do. It's a conversation fair, right? It's a veganic farmer's market of conversations, but there's no line. You just come right in. That's the difference. All righty. Emery's had his hand up. Go for it, Emery.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I would like to see in the future, when all this is established and more in a more solid fashion, that the conversations that there be a central depository for these conversations, properly labeled, with participants possibly noted, so that you know, given the fact that not anyone could be at all conversations at the same time, right? When you do go back to a conversation that's been deposited in a central location, you can go in and participate after the fact and add to that conversation, perhaps, all right, in a commentary or in a review or whatever, or contact someone who was a participant in that particular conversation. So these details would be noted, so that anyone who has the interest can can follow up.
Beautiful, beautiful. Hey, I want to let you all continue. I also want to let Silas and myself off the hook for a couple of minutes to get a glass of water or use the bathroom or whatever, because we got a meeting to get to at 7. But feel free to stay. We are recording now. I'm happy to either stop recording or let it continue as y'all wish. I'm gonna stop recording just to